Kenyetta Hall, welcome to the program today.
Hey, I'm excited to be here.
So, when I shared with some of the ladies in my community that you were coming on, they were saying, "What are you going to talk with Kenyetta about?" And I said, "There's so much I could." So, you're a product leader. We could talk about product. We're not going to
Yep.
spend a lot of time there. You're a professor at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. You're an advisor to entrepreneurs and founders. And the way I've been describing you to people is you're just in general a powerhouse. Really, what I'd like to lean into a lot of my audience, and I've been through this period where
Uh-huh.
we hit I've been describing it as a messy middle. We hit an inflection point. We can get to a point where we're not sure what's next. And you have described yourself, I've heard you describe yourself as a professional pivoter. So, where I wanted to start, we're going to cover a lot, but for
Uh-huh.
the bulk of my audience, the majority of people who listen are mid career, midlife women, professional
Uh-huh.
women, and many of them are figuring out what's next.
Yeah.
And if they listen to you today as we talk about pivoting and inflection points, if one thing were to change for them, if there's one lesson learned from our conversation today, what is the one biggest thing you think will change for them after listening to us?
To know that the vision that you have was given to only you, and you don't have to justify that vision to anyone else. And the second thing is that it's okay that you don't know the vision yet. Curiosity is your friend and not your enemy. And
I
so
love
give
it.
yourself grace and space.
I'd love to hear a little bit about your story.
Most people stay at a job forever. They stay at a job, they move up the ladder, and then they may go off and do their entrepreneurship thing. So that just wasn't my story. I've only had one job that I stayed at for 3.9 years, and that's the longest job I've ever stayed. And, so I've always moved on, even when I didn't know what was next. So I liken that to my dad. So back when I was in college, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I just didn't know what that looked like for me. And I didn't have parents who were trying to force me one way or the other. Right. I had supportive parents, but I think I had in my mind, I was trying to achieve this level of success, and I thought I had to achieve a level of success a certain way. So me and my dad would have these conversations. I remember one time I was at a job, my first job, and I was calling him a crying. I was like, I don't understand why this is happening. He was like, do you want to move up? My dad was very matter of fact in that way. Do you want to move up? And I was like, hey, that's not the point. And he was like, no, that is the point. The point is, do you want to move up? Because I thought that you want to start your own thing. And he was like, so you need to really look at these jobs as a way to give you growth. And he said, get a book and write down what you like and don't like about each organization, each part of your job. So that when you build your own, you know what you're going to build based upon what you like and what you don't like. And remember, don't stay at a job longer than a year and a half, because when you don't grow, you die. And he said, your goal is to not grow within these companies, is to grow so you can figure out what it is that you want to do. You don't think about it, but when somebody implants that seed in you early, and it doesn't always mean that you will experience fruit from that seed right then and there. And so that's what he did. And unbeknownst to me, subconsciously, I never stayed at a job longer than 2 years. And that's how I arrived in that space.
When you were starting your career, you had a view of what success would mean for you. You're now much
Mhm.
farther down the line. What did success mean to you back then versus now? What has shifted for you?
I think it was like climbing this corporate arbitrary ladder. It's not like I didn't see entrepreneurship. I saw it all the time. But it was just like, oh, but the really successful people do this, and then they go on, then they leave, and then they go off and experience entrepreneurship in a different way. And so that's what I thought it needed to be. And I felt that I needed to validate it in those spaces to be validated outside of those spaces. And so I was chasing validation more than chasing what I defined success as. And had I spent just time sitting with myself to define success instead of chasing validation around me, I would have moved differently.
You were seeking early in your career validation. I
Yep.
shared this story with you that for a long, long time in my career, I felt like I was getting the validation externally, and then it went away. I recall you saying that you had a very different trajectory, that you weren't feeling the validation all along.
No, a lot of people in their positions, people always said I was smart, but it worked against me. It didn't work for me. And I'm not trying to say that I was perfect by far. I don't believe that. But what I do believe, though, is that you have to have a champion for you on the inside. I never had a champion for me on the inside of any position that I was in. And when I tried to have champions, it fell upon deaf ears. So I didn't have that trajectory where people were like, oh, we see something in you. Let's cultivate that. I've never had that. I had more adversity come my way than that. So that also pushed me to want to change jobs every 2 years. Like, if there's no growth, I'm not going to stay here. And then also, too, who wants to be under, excuse my language, a fucking bad boss?
Yeah.
Or an organization that doesn't foster that, or only foster certain things. And so that wasn't what I didn't want to stay in that type of environment. Now, I didn't necessarily always know when I left the job what I wanted to do. I did know I didn't want to stay there. If I'm constantly working and doing things right and it's still a negative, why would I stay there?
You have advocated for yourself and you have spoken up, and we all have different configurations of mess, but we all have some sort of mess, and we all hit points where we're not getting the external validation we'd like. I've been hearing from a lot of people feeling like their mindset has plummeted when they're not getting the external validation. You speak up for yourself, even during these periods where you weren't getting validation. Do you have advice for people how to start shifting their mindset when the validation externally just isn't there?
So, a couple things. I think a lot of people want to stay at their job. I didn't have any interest if it wasn't going to benefit me. I think a lot of times in those times, one, I was unwilling to take anything to be in a position. If that meant that I needed to leave, then I left. I found me another position. It's not always about you being in an environment and changing that environment. It's about you understanding that's not the environment that you thrive in and finding something else that you can thrive in. And so when those things would arise, I'm interviewing. They used to call me the interview queen because I'll go find a job. Because at the end of the day, you have to remember you can always make money. And as I got older and progressed, especially when I got my MBA, and I had a situation when I got my MBA, right before I graduated, I had quit my job. I quit my job because they were on some BS. So anyway, I quit my job. And the one thing that the MBA program taught me was like, always have some FU money so that when companies are doing something, then you can always say FU. And so that I had some FU money, I burnt that bridge because I'm never going back anymore.
You said, I can always make money, even if you don't have something lined up.
But I can't get back my time. I can't get back time. So I'm going to continue to rack up experience in the space that I don't even want to be in. So those things would matter to me. And so once I realized I can't get back time, that means I'll go work at Starbucks. I was willing to take a couple steps back if that meant that I can move forward in a way that was beneficial to me. And even though I cared about the validation, it was crazy to me because I didn't care about that type of validation. I cared about the validation of people thinking that I was smart and did good work. And when that wasn't enough, then I just would shift. And it would be hurtful because I think when people hear me say that I set up for myself, the things that was happening to me weren't hurtful. They were, because they were attacking my confidence. Imagine going to every situation and it seems like there is nothing that I can do. And once somebody's made up their mind about me, that's what it is. And people, they don't talk about that enough in corporate. When managers above you make up their mind about who you are, it's really no change in that. They've made the decision. You can't do any more work. It doesn't matter what you do. That's who you are.
A lot of people have been scared recently, especially like you're saying, there's always an opportunity to make more money. There's always other jobs out there. Some people aren't feeling that way these days, and they may be staying in positions that are depleting their confidence. And I wonder, there's this notion of, and I've heard you speak to this, that sometimes before things come into place, things fall apart first. And when you're speaking to people who are afraid to move on from a situation that just isn't working for them out of fear that things will fall apart, I'm curious what you tell them.
So I experienced it several times, right? Where when it was time for me to make a change, it's like, here, this is what I liken it to. You see the signs of, that something needs to be different. The signs get progressively aggressive the more you don't listen to them. I used to get this feeling like, this ain't right. And that was my intuition, like, you know what's right for you. And then I would, all of a sudden, it was always some combative feeling that I was having with my management at the time, all that stuff. And so oftentimes what happens is that when people think about that, they don't lean into their strengths. It took me a while to start realizing just lean into the strength. If I know I'm not supposed to be here, where else am I supposed to be? And how do I start making that transition in the position that I'm in today? And so one of the things I used to look at is when you're in a position, understanding what that organization defines as success and do that. That helps me understand the amount of effort that I need to put in and the amount of effort I can keep to myself so that I can make this transition out. People get really caught up in like, oh, I got to do the best. No, you have to meet their definition of success. That is the best for that organization. And once you've met that, then now you need to be figuring out what is your definition of success and allowing yourself to be curious because you can maintain there. People are trying to go to excellence in a space where they can't be excellent. Right. And so to me, I'm a maintain so that I can do other things and free my mental bandwidth to do other things that I need to do in order to make whatever transition that I need to make.
I wondered about the vision for your career. You're a product leader and advisor. You advise with entrepreneurs and startups. You also have curated and started your own conference for women, the Katalyst Effect. When I see all of this work you're doing, I'm wondering, is there an overarching mission and vision? Like some people may say, oh, you're a product leader. Oh, you're advising women. Is there a cohesive vision you have?
So in all those spaces, when I have the Katalyst Effect for women, which is really designed to help women figure out what their next looks like, and you can only do that by building your own table, but you also need to create your new blueprint for what that next looks like and lay a foundation for that. When we talk about being a product leader, building people, advisory, you're also talking about figuring out what's next. How do we navigate that? When you're doing the same thing with startups, the themes across the board are the same. And that's really that I help people see the light at the end of the tunnel and provide a pathway to get there. Whether that's with product in a larger organization, product and people, whether that's building a piece of software, whether that guiding, talk to entrepreneurs and founders, startup founders, whether that is with women. It is always, what is the light that you need to see? And what pathway do we need to create to get there?
With women underneath the Katalyst Effect umbrella, you have developed the 6M framework. Where did the 6M framework come from? I'm assuming a lot from your experience as well. And what are the 6Ms?
So the 6M framework, as I was thinking about the things that I've gone through and what I've helped founders go through, what I've helped teams go through, what I've helped leaders go through, I've coached women through or entrepreneurs through. The themes that kept coming up were that there's this intrinsic piece and there's this extrinsic piece to the foundation that you create when there's times that you need to change. And so as I start to think about what needed to change and things I've been through and what I had to really start to lay the foundation for, it came up. The 6Ms are mindset, mission, motivation. Those are your intrinsic things. In order to make a pivot, you need to first change your mindset. You have to start looking at things differently because your body doesn't know the difference between what is real in the physical world and what's mentally in your head. So you have to start doing some mental training first. Next thing you need to do is define the mission. What are you trying to be in this world? What does that look like for you? Notice that this not just revolves around business, because when you're a smaller business, they are intertwined, right? And so you need to understand, what are you trying to put forth in this world? And then the next one is motivation. Discipline is important. Focus is important. Keeping yourself motivated towards that mission, keeping your mindset great, is going to require that you create some rituals around how to continuously keep yourself in that motivated state so that you can stay focused, stay disciplined, keep your mindset. And that's not to say that you're not going to veer off the path. What it's to say is, what is it that I have to go back to ground? What is the practices that I create that ground me every single time I veer off that path? Because people assume that it's a straight line. No, assume that you will veer, because what you're creating is something new and you internally are not ready for that. Your body is not ready for that. So that's a change. You might take 20 steps forward and 15 steps back, but you took 5 steps. It's a practice. And so the next 3 M's are movement, money, and management. And with movement, I refer to movement as strategy. What is the vision? Mission and vision aren't the same. What's the vision? They can coincide. It's like a why. Oh, but what's the vision that you have, and what are the tactics that you're going to use to employ that? What's the vision? What's the strategy? What's the tactics? And tactics and strategy are not the same thing. So what are those things so that you can start taking steps forward? You don't need to play for one, right? But you need to be thinking long term. I had somebody tell me one time that one of the reasons his business failed was because he didn't plan to make a lot of money. This is your time to think big. Your vision needs to be big.
I'm wondering, was there a specific M or a couple of M's that you struggled with? Some harder than others, and if so, which ones?
So movement, did I get the money? Of course, money got to be in there. Like, listen,
Yeah.
pivots don't happen without you understanding how your money is moving, right? What it looks like to live the life that you live. It's okay to talk about that. Women need to be more clear about talking about money. The good, the bad, the ugly. If you have a lot of debt, it's okay that you have a lot of debt because you maintain it. So how do we put into a plan to lower that debt? And then the next one is management. How do we manage it all? How do we manage our mindset? What does that look like? I had a friend tell me I took stuff off my plate and realized that it's okay if I drop some things. How do we find harmony? People are like, I want to balance it out. I want to juggle it up. How do you find harmony amongst the things that you have? One of the things that I struggled with, one of the M's is always mindset. Why could I play the comparison game so much that I get so far into comparing myself to other people that I had to really take 2 steps back to really create a practice not to do that, to start laser focused in, blocking everything out and just going for what I know to be true because the vision was given to me.
I've been hearing from a lot of people where they may know their vision. They may even have an understanding of what they're meant to be doing, their mission, yet they're hesitating to take action. I don't think it's an accident that you mentioned mindset first in your 6Ms. It sounds like to me, mindset is the foundation before anything else can help you be successful.
It is because nothing moves without that. And oftentimes what happens when people are given a vision or feel some inkling that they want to do something different, it's the people around you can be discouraging you. And some people do it intentionally and some people do it with no intention, right? That was never their intention was to make you feel bad. But you have to start filtering through the lens of understanding that these people have had their own experiences. And that's the lens in which they're giving you advice or making some recommendation or telling you what you should do. That's where their lens is coming from. But you have to also understand that what is in you was given to you. It wasn't given to them and it wasn't meant for them to understand and it wasn't meant for you to explain it to them. But that's hard to do because in society, that's all we're doing is explaining ourselves. Yep. We're constantly explaining the why, the what, what we made this move. And then second to that, judging. Why am I making this pivot at 42? Because I'm 42. Why am I making this pivot at 42? I should have done when I was 32. No, you're doing whatever time is good for you. As long as you have breath in your body, you can do whatever you want to do. You have another day on this earth to make some, excuse my language, to make some shit shake. Okay? You have another day on this earth. And so you have to stop looking at how people are trying to box you in. For a country who constantly says they are done with boxes, they are steady putting people in boxes all the time. I don't want to live a life of box, but then you got to check box for all this other stuff. No, you have to be very thoughtful about what you define success for yourself, not what society defined it to you. You have to find the right type of people to be around in this time. That doesn't mean let go of your friends, but that means that they can't get the same type of energy from you at this time because there are things that you need to do and share it with people who can support you in this time.
I started our conversation saying that we have a lot of areas in common, which it was eerie to me, focusing on product leadership, consulting in that area, at teaching, advising, but also not moving into a new area, as you said. It's using our skills to help boost women too and help them figure out what's next. You spoke to, though, it's a really, really tricky thing, dealing with expectations and learning how to trust yourself. You were speaking to what you'll hear from the outside. There's societal expectations. There's family expectations. At what point, and I know it's always a journey, but at what point did you realize that you needed to trust your internal expectations and trust yourself versus all of these other expectations that are coming. And I ask you this because it's a blocker for many, many people to
Yeah.
go outside those boxes as much as they may want to.
When things did not go right, every single time I can look back and see that when I could have did better at something, or my business could have been in a different space, or I could have mentally been in a different space, is because I chose to listen to someone else instead of choosing to listen to what I knew to be true for me.
Mhm.
You have to listen to yourself first and then go to a trusted source who can help you craft around that. So I found that one person. And one of the things that I did was like, all right, I have all these components, but there's some missing pieces. What are they? What is blocking me? What are my goals? Let's really get honed in on those. And then what are my gaps? And how do I fill those gaps? And it's just as simple as that. Sometimes it don't need to be complex. It just needs to be defined.
I'm curious if you're seeing differences between when you're explaining to people what you do, when you're saying, oh, I'm a professor at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, I advise product teams, versus when you tell people I'm overseeing and running the Katalyst Effect and helping support women through pivots.
Yeah.
I'm seeing differences in the reactions I get when I introduce myself as a product leader running product events versus running events for women. And I'm
Yeah.
curious what reaction you're getting.
So what's crazy is that people try to put me in a box all the time.
Yes.
Here's a couple of reasons why. One, people need to know what to come to you for. So grow the trunk before the limbs. Oftentimes people try to have the limbs without the trunk.
Yeah.
And so I used to be there too. So I understand that. But grow the trunk and then the limbs will come and then you're able to space off of these different things. But what often happens with me teaching or me being a product leader, with me, doing the thing for women, it's meant to try to put me in the most boxes. I've never gotten that feel that women were trying to box me into anything. They was like, oh, girl, okay. That's number one. Number two, I can be both this and this. So I'm always mindful of that. And I used to care a lot more about it when I heard people used to be like, oh my God, she does a lot. And then I realized, y'all not my customer. Y'all ain't paying me. Why do I care so much? Let me move on. And if you think I do a lot, I do.
Yeah.
I do a lot. You're correct. Thank you. And I move on from that. You have to realize you need to be on the mind of people that pay you.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be on the mind of people that can refer to you. And because now if I'm trying to be on everybody's mind, am I really trying to build a business or am I trying to get validation? Okay, you have to be careful with that when I build a product. Do I care about everybody validating my product? Or do I care about the people who are going to buy my product? And the problem solving for that group of people validate my product.
Okay. So the women you've been working with and the women you've been
Mhm.
supporting to find their purpose and align with their values and figure out what's next. Let's talk about the Katalyst Effect. You held your, was it your first conference for the
No, it was my
Okay.
first conference, October 25th. It was a full day conference. I wanted to organize it to be different than some of the conferences I've seen. So I had a live broadcasting of a podcast. I had a panel discussion on the messy middle and how do you manage it all. And then I think that networking has to be intentional. It is so hard to network when it's not
Yeah.
intentional, as in the space needs to be a facilitated space with questions or something, because everybody doesn't really know how to interact with everyone else. It is hard. And so I wanted to create that space. We went into workshops, and the workshops were on three of those M's: money, movement, and mission, the ones that are actionable, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's important to know that's what the conference is about. It was about laying the foundation and build your own table. Stop subscribing to everybody else's definition of success. Stop thinking that you have to be perfect in order to be worthy of success. Stop thinking that society's definition of success is your definition of success, because it's not. And it's okay that it's not. It's okay that you don't know and that you need to leave with curiosity and begin to explore what is good for you. Get to know who you are. I'm 42. That doesn't mean I know who I am. I know who I am enough to know that there are some gaps. My cousin said something to me on my birthday this year. And she said, because I have good people around me, she said, see yourself from the eyes of the way that the people who love you see you, and not through the lens of your own failures. And we are viewing ourselves in that way. We can't even allow ourselves the space to be great. To say I have a vision inside me, it is not truly clear, but that first step is clear enough for me to take it. The goal of the name of the Katalyst, my business, Katalyst HQ, Katalyst Effect, is that the catalyst changes things with the core remaining the same. A catalyst is an accelerant to the greatness that is already there. And so how can I create the space for someone to see the light and provide that, to create the space to provide a pathway to get there?
For the women who know they want to be outside of the boxes, they're saying 2026 is not going to be a boxed year. They're going to come out and align with who they are and their purpose. In these messy times, like outside of what's happening inside ourselves, there's practicalities of life. And you talked about money is one of the M's. And many people are struggling with, in this messy economy and environment, the tech industry is having really rough times. That's an understatement. With AI being here now, people afraid for their jobs. Some people have articulated they should just take what they can get right now for the money M piece, because there's a fear that aligning with who you are and your purpose may not translate into the financial abundance. Does that come up for some of the women you talk to? And if so, what would you say to them?
Here's the thing. Again, once you realize what's your baseline, one of the things I always think about is like, what's my baseline? What do I need to take care of myself? Because once my needs are met, I can think. See, when your needs aren't met, you cannot think. You need to act. 90% of everything that you do is confidence. If you are not confident in the things that you want to do, not on the same time, they're not going to come to fruition. It's not a magic pill. It's what needs to take place for me to get to that first step of what I really want to do. And then when we talk about technology, what we often talk about is technology happening to us, but not as an evolution for us. Mm-hmm. And so when you start to reframe around that, this is a time for you to evolve, right? This is not a time for you to be scared. It's a time for you to evolve. And what does your evolution look like for you? Does that mean you get a little more technical skills? One of the biggest skills you need to have is being creative.
Yeah.
It ain't learning how to code. It's understanding how to solve a problem. That's never going out of style. What goes out of style is being an order taker. What goes out of style is not understanding how to make the best decision, not the right decision at the time. You make the best decision with the information you have at the time, not the right decision, because the goal is to always make a decision. You are there to handle the fallout of whether that decision is right or wrong, because the market will tell you that. And then what do? Make another damn decision. You are in the business of making decisions. You are in the business of being confident in your skills. I own a purpose. That is mine. How I choose to execute purpose can change across the board. So if, my purpose is finding the light, it's helping me find like the end of the tunnel and provide a pathway to get there. That's a purpose. That's purpose for me. But I can execute that through entrepreneurship. I can execute that through a job. I can execute that through conferences. I can execute that in various ways. But what we have to take back is ownership of our decision-making process and our intuition, and begin to trust ourselves. And yes, you do need to be responsible, but at what cost to our life that we want to create, that we haven't bet on ourselves? When you talk about entrepreneurship, when you talk about people in these bigger jobs, they betting on them. They bet on themselves. Bet on you. And just because you bet don't mean you always gonna win. Start being okay that failure is practice. Success is not equivalent to perfection. Success is equivalent to growth, but growth cannot take place if you're not failing, because failing is practice. It is where you learn to look at things differently so that you can make different decisions, so that failure then becomes your teacher. We have been penalized for failure for so long. We have internalized it. And being a Black woman, Black people look at failure way differently. We internalize it on a deeper level. We internalize it because we have this inverted pyramid that happens. So we at the top of the pyramid, everybody's cheering for us, we're going to school. And if we made it in quotation marks, that pyramid flipped. Now people are dependent on us. Parents, family, friends, right? When you have that inverted pyramid happening, that lowers your threshold to take risk. Entrepreneurs don't just take risk, they manage risk. That is why we do research. That is why we are curious. That's why we do pilots. Because we're managing the risk that we are going to take. We're managing it. And we okay if we come up short. We okay if we fail. Because it don't feel good in the beginning. Let me be clear, it don't feel good. But eventually it gets to a space where you're like, I can recover. As long as you have breath in your body, you are recovering from whatever failure that you did in your entire life. Every single day, you have the opportunity to go do something again.
Given your growth mindset, given your advice to others to take an expansive mindset, to take managed risk and manage that risk and put together pilots to measure and learn. It's like a product process, a design process. What are you planning in 2026 outside of the box?
Okay, so I have a couple things. Right now, I'm out the country because I'm in what I call it, not what I call, what I have somebody who told me that I need to do, take a tactical pause. The military term where you reflect on what's happening today, some things, what you've done in the past, why you here, what does that look like? But you don't do any strategic planning. You just in reflection mode, gratitude mode. I left and I'm in Colombia and I'll be here for a month. And the pace of life is different here. I've only been here for 2 days, but I've been doing regular people stuff like going grocery shopping. I'm taking a tactical pause to be able to reflect on the life I created. I met the goals I needed to do in 2025. What does 2026 look like for me? I'm going to launch a course called the Product Lab because I really want to focus on helping non-technical founders that build their prototypes and go into MVP planning like a product manager does. Product thinking is huge now, and I want to really help founders and leaders start to understand how to solve problems in a way that is beneficial, how to build in a way that really bridges that gap between business and their product and their business outcomes, and provide a space to make that happen with guidance. Another thing that I'm doing, I have the power hours where I help people. These are one-on-one advisory sessions that I work with leaders and founders on understanding what's happening in their business or with their product, or how do we implement that new technology, and understanding where you are, what you need to do, and what those 3 next steps you need to have. Those are core things that I want to do. How are we going to use AI to teach more women to be into this space? So really taking all the things I learned in product and understanding the business to technology, understanding how to build products, understanding how to problem solve, critically think, and helping people creatively apply and responsibly. And that's extremely important to me in this time. And the Katalyst Effect, we're going to be doing that again. So how do I create the space for women? So I want to start a group, the circle for women that are in that space, who are transitioning to the entrepreneurship. I know so many women who are opting out of the system.
Yeah.
I know so many executive women, the people that I help, who are opting out. They're quitting with no jobs. They're quitting like, we don't figure this out because this ain't it. And it's no shade to corporate, but they understand that the next phase in their life is not going to look like that. And what does it look like? And so helping women like that and creating a space for women to have that take place, for them to be able to build with one another and to be inspired to action, not to just be inspired.
Mhm.
It's not enough to be inspired. I want people to take action. And sometimes that requires a little hand holding.
Yeah. You have so much coming up and so many exciting pilots and programs and offerings coming up. I know a lot of women have plans for what the next year will be. What would you recommend? Is the pause essential, or what would you tell others?
It was essential for me. I think people think of a pause as taking too many steps back they can't recover from. Taking a pause is taking a step in your own mental health journey so that you can start to get some reflection on why you're here, what brought you to this space, and be grateful that you even made it. Like, we still here. And then giving yourself the ability to deeply breathe. Somebody told me, I told her I was going to the trip. She was like, oh man, you're going to have the chance to truly exhale. You know how important that is? Because when you can exhale, when you can breathe, when it creates a space for new ideas, new innovations, streamlining, all that, because you're taking yourself out that environment. You're putting yourself in a space of a bit more mental ease, lowering that cortisol, finding spaces of joy all the time. It invigorates you to take 20 steps forward. It recharges you in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. Kenyetta, when the women listening, I know will be inspired and take action, where can my listeners find you?
So please reach out to me on LinkedIn, Kenyetta Hall. You can reach out to me on Instagram, Kenyetta K Hall there as well. And if you're looking to do a power hour, let me know. I'm always enjoying doing power hours with business people, product people, and women who are ready to make the transition. I think it's important that you don't always need to know the next step, but sometimes you need to get a little formalized process in place so that you can take it.
Kenyetta, thank you so much for the time today. It was so lovely.
Yeah, it was. Thank you so much.